Hello, my name is Alan Jones, and I welcome you to another life story coming to you from Life Stories Worldwide, where we bring you stories from across the world. We bring you stories of people who've gone through all types of challenges and how they dealt with those pain and rejection and other things, and how those lives have been transformed. We are live on StreamYard, Facebook, and YouTube. You can also watch us on our website, lifestoriesworldwide.com. Our life story today comes from India, where we have David Raj waiting to share his story. David is, as I say, from India, somewhere near Mumbai. His family faced significant hardships and financial crises throughout their lives, and it made life very challenging for them. The uncertainty of the situation raised many questions about the existence of God and his promises. But however, these difficult moments really led David to learn more about God and to trust in him. So it's a real pleasure to welcome David Raj from India to share his story. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Alan. So yeah, it is greetings, and I'm glad that I'm part of this whole streaming of able to share my story and to encourage people around the world and people who are viewing today to give them to talk to them about life and hope. And that's so important. Most of the people, we all go through our own challenges and crises, but I thought, my stories probably can help people to find hope and to find, something that they can lean upon. So I'm David Raj, and right now I live in a place called Mumbai, near Pune, near Mumbai. But I was born and brought up in Calcutta. It is West Bengal in India. And as you heard from Alan, my life was a very challenging. We went through a different challenging times as my family, originally who are from southern part of India, moved to this place called Calcutta. And at that time it was called Calcutta. Now it is Kolkata. And he was into working through a leather businesses, leather tanneries in India, and started his career from there. But life was not easy for him. It was so challenging, and as a family, I was born and I came to existence, but we had so much of things that we had to face in my childhood. My childhood was pretty tough. Things was not easy for me. My schooling was not easy for me to make it for school, and things was not so easy. It was so difficult. Day by day, things become so strenuous for each one of us as a family. I and my sister, we are two in the family, and but I wanted to tell that my family uh, was believing in God, no doubt, was religious in a very different sense. As you know, in India, it is a pluralistic worldview, which means everyone, each one of the people in India tries to follow a God or have a God for himself, a religion for himself, and tries to do something that can draw the attention of God. And even in our family, my father was from a different faith, my mother was a different faith, though she was from a Catholic background. On but it was so ritualistic. We used to go to church in the early days, very active in going to the church and also following different rituals and things that would give us some satisfaction. So as things life was going on, and then my dad, as he was working in the leather, didn't go well, so he had to lose his job and his whole career. And like again, he started to pick up anything that comes on his way. And at times it was not difficult even to feed us. It was so difficult and challenging, and I was just 12 years. During that age, I had an opportunity to find, to even to find God more closely. So I was also right from the childhood was so active in going to the church and following the rituals and doing everything that makes me a good religious person. But then in that, even in that small year, somewhere I was not finding peace, and some longingness was there. I was so much wanting to also know God, to see that how I can be made more happy, because I was seeing the difficulties of my parents, and I thought that, if there is a God, our situations probably would also improve. But then, as things, I was comparing myself to many people, those who are doing well in their life and the family's doing good. And I thought, okay, why not us? If we are also, if we, I thought I was doing good in trying to please God by all my, visiting Sunday churches. Sometimes I go to the temples and the other rituals that happens in India. But I thought that why is that, something is not happening good to us. So these questions were so much coming to us, but life more and more becoming was hopeless. And I found that we are getting more into a dungeon. And that is when someone uh, from in India who came to meet us as a family and started to talk about God. He started to talk about finding God and saying how there is a, this person Jesus is more than a religion. It's just not about Christian. It's not about for this Christian, but he can transform our life and he can change the whole story of my life as a child, as a young boy, and also as a family. But then again, my father and we were just thinking, saying that, am I even trying to find God because my life will get better? Or is there something more than that? But then, with this little small question, not, at that age it was not very logical. But then, we were going through the person talking about God after day, week after day, week. The person is to come and tell us that this God who loves you, he takes notice of you, he notices you, and he would understand all the challenges. And it is not only changing the situations, but to find hope in God. And that is when we were trying to first time reading the Bible, because my mother was a very good believer, or she used to go to the church and find all the saints. In Catholics there were so many different saints and different places, so she found, okay, whatever is comes on the way, let's do it, and let's satisfy God and the people. But then now, the first time we were introduced to read the Bible. So we were started to read the Bible. I read the Bible too in that age, and my parents started reading the Bible for the first time. Otherwise, it was just visiting churches or being good as a person. And then it was not easy. It was not a one day that we found somebody shared and we wanted to come to God to know more about Him. But it took month, probably after weeks, months, and then it took at least within 5 to 6 months. I was convinced that this Christ would forgive my sins, because I don't have to find God. I don't have to try to find God. All my life, we were trying to see that how do we find God through our good works, through our rituals, through our religious practices. But then at that first time, somewhere in my heart, I found, okay, I think I can find the God who finds me, who definitely would be coming and able to live in my life. Because Christ living, the God living in the heart of human being was something new to us. Because I was also, like any people, was in an impression that God lives out there in the religious structure, religious building, and religious facilities. So that is the reason we all even try to go and to see that we find some satisfaction and some hope in the religious places. It can be church, it can be temple, it can be, each religion has their own facilities and they think God is living there. And as we were doing that, but this time, when we came to the knowledge of knowing that God is this God, sovereign God, whom we think is going to live in my heart, and the capacity to live in our heart and transform me and give the heart full of a life full of hope. And then I made the prayer, and I made that commitment, saying that, God, if you are the God who are going to live in my heart, would you please change our situations? Because our situations were so difficult that sometimes a meal was also, full 3 meals was not always possible. And said, Lord, you help us and we believe in you. And also the fact, this was one side, and another fact is that to get to the fact that Jesus, who rose from the dead, is alive, and this God would also come in our lives. Because this one verse from John was so powerful to me. It says, "Because I live, you will live also." And then that gave me hope. That gave our whole family hope that this God who lives, because he lives, we will live also. Because I never got to hear anything about it. We learned more about different saints. We learned about different characters, different people, and and then we thought that okay, we need to kind of do worship them, and we need to keep them as a small picture in our books and say, "Saint, please help us," or "Someone, please do something for us." But now, this hope that this God, which, the only person in human history, Jesus, who lived, who rose from the dead, and this God is willing to live in this human temple, and that is in my heart itself, is the biggest transformation. And then, as a whole family, we made a commitment to follow him. We made a commitment to invite him into our lives. And then we did that. As we did that, we were all four people: my dad, my mom, my sister, and myself. We gave our life to Christ Jesus. And from there, things started to take a different turn. We didn't immediately, this didn't happen that we suddenly all our problems ran away or flew off, or all our financial condition became better, or we got all the means. No, not necessarily. We still had challenges, but there was hope. This time, how we dealt with it became, everything became so difficult. It's not that I got a life, my parents or family, we got a new life skill to battle with it, but we got a new story, the story of Jesus, who gave hope, and which also gave us more, that belief in him, and thinking that it is not, I'm not alone. There is someone who has conquered death in the face of this human history. And then, which means the biggest problem is death. And if that problem is solved, and I don't think there is any other problem, that such thoughts right from the beginning started to fill my heart. And I started to grab a Bible, as I told in my early story, and I started to read too. In my 12 years, I found God and found his claims to be more appealing to me. And you wouldn't believe, in by the end of 12 years, as I entered 13 years, I was able to read the whole book. And though I was not getting completely, but I found the story of Jesus very compelling. The gospel was very compelling. The book of John, especially in the book of the Bible in New Testament, it was so encouraging. And I started to read again and again. And and then the different stories where it says about first people who rose from the Lord, who rose, Jesus, who rose from the dead, also raised people from the dead, like one story that is Lazarus. Because my question in the early age that, if there is a God, why we should die? I was also afraid of death. I don't know, somehow that came to me thinking that, I'm going to cease to live one day. Nobody put that story in my mind, that thought in my mind that you're going to die, but somewhere that fear of death was also, persecuting me. It was in my mind. But I just then, and I said that when I saw the story, and then I started to gain hope, saying that I'm going to live, I'm not going to die. Even if I'm going to die, I'm going to live, with this God who has rose from the dead already. And then these thoughts started to build in, started to build my, these are the thoughts that start building in my mind, in my heart, very convincing. And I said, Lord, you help me to live, and to live with you always. And, as things happened, and then I started to find the purpose in my life. I was always thinking I should become one of that rich person, someone who can handle all situation well. I need to do well in my studies and everything, and I need to also find a good job, good career, and probably change the life, my whole family history. But this time I had a new concept. I thought, God, I wanted to know you more. And that is when, right from the beginning, in my young age, as we also, the practice of going to church was there already, but more than that, to know him more was the became the more purpose. And then I thought, I wrote also in my diary, saying that the first purpose of human life is to know God, and to have fellowship with him. And that this line, to knowing God and to have fellowship with him, was something that was so flooding in my heart. Because we were all knowing religion. I tried to know the religious practices. We tried to be, to also fast during this Lent period, we in the Lent period, and do all the things that I'm required to. But now I started to know God and started to know what he purposed in my life. As I started developing that knowledge of knowing God, and to say that to have fellowship with God, that means it is not necessarily to have fellowship with the institution, the religious institutions, the body, the church, or per se any particular thing, but to know the person Jesus. And I'll try to wanted to know him more by reading more Bible.